Commander Elias Reeves stood at the edge of a glowing forest on planet Elysium 9. The trees here were tall and strange, with leaves that shimmered in soft colors, blue, green, and sometimes purple. The wind was silent. Even the air felt like it was holding its breath. He had been on this mission for 6 months. The goal was to find intelligent life on this planet and make peaceful contact. His team stayed at the base camp while he went out alone each day. The locals, the Valari, had been seen before, but they never spoke. They only watched from a distance and then disappeared into the mist. Today, something was different. Elias followed a faint trail through the glowing grass. His boots made soft crunching sounds, but the forest didn't seem to mind. As he walked, his helmet scanned for life signs. A soft beep echoed in his ear. Life form detected. 20 meters. Not human. He froze. Moving slowly, he stepped behind a tree and peeked around. There she was. An alien woman stood beside a small pool of water, her back to him. Her skin was pale silver, like moonlight. Her long hair flowed down her back like strands of starlight, and it moved even though there was no wind. She wore a robe that shimmered like water, and small lights floated gently around her shoulders. Elias didn't move. He just watched. His breath caught in his throat. This was the closest he had ever been to a Valari. Suddenly, the woman turned. Her bright blue eyes met his. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, she flinched. She stumbled back, eyes wide with fear. Her hands rose in defense as if Elias was going to hurt her. Her body trembled, and her face twisted into something close to horror. Elias raised both hands in peace. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." But she couldn't understand him. The translator hadn't been calibrated to her language. She took another step back, her robe brushing against the glowing plants. They dimmed as she touched them, as if reacting to her fear. Elias took one slow step forward. The woman turned and ran into the woods, and just like that, she was gone. He stood there, heart pounding. Why had she been so afraid? Why did she look at him like he was a monster? He had trained for years for this moment. He had studied alien behavior, body language, first contact methods. He had learned to be calm, respectful, open. And yet, the first Valari he met looked at him like he was fire come to burn her. Elias knelt beside the pool where she had stood. The water was still rippling from her footsteps. He touched the edge of the pool and saw a small flower, dropped from her robe. It pulsed with a gentle light. He picked it up, careful not to crush it. It was warm. Not hot, just warm, like a living thing. "Commander Reeve to base," he spoke into his comm. "Go ahead," replied a voice. "I made contact," Elias said. "Valari female, she saw me and she flinched. Did she attack?" "No, she ran. Looked terrified." "Copy that. Return to base." Elias didn't move. He looked again into the trees where she had vanished. "No," he said. "I'm staying. I think she might come back." The next day, Elias returned to the same place. He brought no weapons. Only a small box of supplies, food, soft lights, a piece of music recorded on an old Earth device. He set everything down beside the pool and sat cross-legged nearby. He waited. Hours passed. The sun above Elysium 9 never truly set. It only dimmed slightly, casting long shadows. But still, Elias waited. At last, he heard a soft sound behind him. He didn't turn. He simply smiled and said, "It's yours. I brought it for you." From the corner of his eye, he saw her. She stood behind a tree, only her shoulder and part of her face visible. She watched him with careful eyes. He didn't speak again. Instead, he opened the music device and pressed play. A soft melody filled the air, an old Earth lullaby, gentle and slow. The sound echoed softly through the glowing trees. The Valari woman stepped forward just a little. The lights around her flickered. She didn't run this time. Elias smiled again. "It's okay," he said, though he knew she couldn't understand. She looked at the box of gifts. Her eyes lingered on a small fruit, orange and smooth. Slowly, carefully, she walked closer. Elias stayed still. She bent down, picked up the fruit and held it in both hands. She brought it to her lips but didn't eat. Instead, she closed her eyes, and the fruit began to glow brighter. Elias watched with wonder. After a moment, she placed the fruit back on the stone and looked at him. Her eyes were still wary, but the fear had faded. She raised her hand, not in greeting, but in warning. Then she pointed to her chest. "Silari," she said. Her voice was like wind chimes. Elias pointed to himself. "Elias." She tilted her head, then said, "L-E-S." He nodded. Then she left again, fading into the trees like mist. That night, Elias sat by the pool again. The flower she had dropped was still glowing softly in his hand. He looked at the stars and wondered what would happen next. She had come back. She had spoken. Maybe tomorrow she would stay longer. But one thing was certain. Something about him had frightened her deeply, and something else had made her return. He didn't understand yet, but he was ready to find out. The next morning, Elias Reeve woke early. He didn't need an alarm. His mind was already awake, filled with questions about Silari, the alien woman who had finally spoken her name. He packed a small bag with supplies, more fruit, a light blanket, and a small medical kit. Then he walked back to the pool where they had met. The forest was still glowing softly in the early light. Everything felt calm, like the world was waiting for something. Elias sat down by the pool again. He placed the items gently on a flat stone, hoping she would come. He didn't turn on any music today. He wanted to listen, to the forest, to the silence, and to her. If she came, hours passed. He stayed patient. Suddenly, a sound. Branches, cracking, leaves rustling. Elias turned quickly. Silari stumbled out from the trees, but something was wrong. She was limping. One side of her robe was torn. Her silver skin had dark marks on it, bruises or maybe burns. Her eyes looked tired and her breathing was fast. "Silari!" Elias stood up quickly. She tried to stay upright, but her legs gave out. She fell to her knees. Elias rushed forward. "It's okay," he said, kneeling beside her. She tried to push him away weakly but didn't have the strength. Her eyes were filled with fear again. But this time, it wasn't because of him. It was pain. Elias opened the medical kit. "I can help," he said softly. "Please trust me." She looked at him. Her hands trembled. Then slowly, hesitantly, she nodded. Elias gently reached out and touched her arm. The moment his hand made contact with her skin, something happened. Her skin shimmered with a soft blue light. A pulse ran through her body. Her breath caught in her throat, but she didn't pull away. Elias cleaned her wounds with care. The medical scanner beeped softly, trying to understand her biology. The cuts weren't deep, but her body was clearly not doing well. He applied a cooling gel and wrapped her arm. To his surprise, her skin began to heal faster than expected. The light that glowed under her skin grew stronger where he touched her. It was almost like his touch was helping her heal in a way his tools couldn't. She stared at him in wonder. Then softly, she whispered something in her own language. The translator couldn't catch the full meaning, but one word came through. "Light." Elias smiled gently. "You're going to be okay." She sat quietly beside him for a while. She didn't speak, but her fear had faded. Her breathing slowed. She even reached for the fruit he had brought and ate it in small bites. After some time, she stood up again. Slowly, carefully. She pointed at the forest, then at herself, then made a wide motion with her arms. "Danger?" Elias asked. "You were attacked?" She nodded. He frowned. "By who?" She paused, then pointed upward, toward the sky. "Not animals, Not nature. Something else. Elias's heart skipped. Were there others watching them? Another species? A threat? He pulled out a small projector and displayed a few images, pictures of different species known to humans. She shook her head at each. Then she drew something in the dirt. A shape. Long body. Sharp points. And glowing eyes. Elias didn't recognize it. But she had clearly been hurt by something that didn't belong in her world. That night, Elias returned to the base camp. "Commander, we saw something strange on the long-range scan," said Lieutenant Kieran, one of the science officers. "A ship, unknown design. It didn't land. It's hiding behind one of the moons." Elias's face grew serious. "I think it attacked one of the Valari. I saw her today. Wounded. Scared. You sure it wasn't natural?" He shook his head. "No." She pointed to the sky, and her body reacted to my touch in a way I can't explain. "You're saying your touch healed her?" "Yes," Elias said. "Not just physical wounds. Emotional, too. She was scared before. But when I helped her, something changed." Kieran raised an eyebrow. "Maybe it's because the Valari see humans as dangerous, and you proved them wrong." Elias nodded slowly. "Maybe." But deep down, he felt it was something more. Something ancient and strange. Something important. The next few days, Elias and Sayalari met again. She was stronger now. They couldn't speak many words, but they found other ways to understand each other. Gestures, drawings, music, and shared silence. She taught him to listen to the forest. He taught her to play a simple melody on the music box. One afternoon, Sayalari placed her hand on Elias's chest and closed her eyes. A light moved from her hand to his heart. For a second he saw a vision. Flashes of her past. A war. Fire. Shadows falling from the sky. Valari running. Hiding. And humans. Angry. Scared. Holding weapons. Elias pulled back, breathing hard. "That's what you saw in me the first time. The memory of war." She looked at him sadly. "But that wasn't me," he said. She touched his hand. "Not now." The translator worked. This time, 2 words, simple, powerful. Elias realized something. The Valari had known humans before, long ago. And something had gone terribly wrong. A broken piece. A terrible misunderstanding. And the fear had passed down through generations. But now, something had changed. One human had reached out. And one, Valari, had reached back. That evening the stars above Elysium 9 twinkled like silent watchers. Elias sat with Sayalari near the pool. The wounds on her skin had fully healed. But the deeper wounds, the ones in her heart and memory, were still there. Even so, her eyes no longer showed fear. They showed hope. Elias knew this was only the beginning. Through. Danger hadn't passed. Something else was coming, hidden in the sky behind the moon, watching. But for now there was peace. And peace begins with trust. The days passed slowly on Elysium 9. Commander Elias Reeve and Sayalari, the Valari woman, met often by the glowing pool in the forest. They had formed a quiet bond, sharing moments without words. Sayalari showed Elias parts of her world, the soft light of the plants, the gentle sounds of the forest, and the calm rhythm of Valari life. But one question stayed heavy in Elias's mind. Why had the Valari feared humans for so long? Why had Sayalari flinched the first time she saw him? One afternoon, as the twin suns dipped low, Elias prepared the small translator device he carried. He had gathered recordings of Valari language and history from old data found on the planet. Today, he hoped to learn more. Sayalari watched him, quietly, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Elias touched her hand gently. The translator glowed softly and began to play sounds and images inside their minds. A strange but peaceful way to share thoughts. It was called a bioneural link. At first they saw simple things, the forest, animals, stars. Then suddenly, the images changed. Elias saw bright flashes of fire, smoke, and broken ships falling from the sky. He saw Valari running through dark forests, hiding from something terrible. Sailari's voice whispered in his mind. War. Elias felt the sadness in those memories. The Valari had been at war, long ago. But with whom? The images showed humans too. Soldiers in shining armor, weapons raised, faces full of fear and anger. But Elias saw something strange. Between the Awa, two groups, Valari and humans, there was chaos, confusion. The fighting was fast and violent, but it did not seem to start from either side. Instead, shadowy shapes moved between them, unknown creatures whispering lies, planting seeds of fear. The Valari woman spoke again, her voice clearer now. They were tricked, she said. Not by us, not by humans, by others. Elias frowned. Others? Who? She showed him visions of a dark fleet of ships, sharp, black, and full of strange symbols. These ships had caused the war. The creatures behind them wanted the Valari and humans to destroy each other. They fed on fear and hate. Elias's heart pounded. They want to keep us divided. Sayalari nodded. Yes. They're called Karniks, ancient, dangerous. Elias looked up at the sky, now a deep purple, stars beginning to shine. We need to tell the others, he said. Sailari's expression grew serious. The Valari elders will not listen. They blame humans. They fear us. Elias knew this was true. The Valari had closed themselves off for centuries, waiting for the threat to pass. Sailari's courage to meet him was rare and dangerous. We need proof, Elias said. Something that will show both sides the truth. Sailari looked, away then back. She touched his hand lightly. We must be careful, she said. If the elders find out, they will stop us. Elias nodded. Then we work in secret. That night, Elias returned to the base camp to gather data. The science officers were curious about his discovery. Lieutenant Kieran asked, You're saying the war wasn't our fault? Not exactly, Elias replied. There was a third force, the Karniks. They want to divide and conquer. Kieran frowned. How do we prove it? Elias showed her the images from the bio-neural link. These ships have been hiding near Elysium 9. We detected one behind the moon. Kieran's eyes widened. If they attack, we need to be ready. Yes, Elias said. But first we must unite with the Valari. Kieran nodded slowly. Good luck with that. Back at the forest pool, Elias and Sayalari planned their next step. Sayalari said, The rite of fusion can help us. Elias looked puzzled. It is an ancient Valari tradition, she explained. Two beings share their minds and hearts. They understand each other fully. No secrets. No fear. Can humans do that? Elias asked. No one knows, she replied. It is risky, but if it works, it can unite our people. Elias felt the weight of the moment. He had come here to find peace. Maybe this was the way. Let's do it, he said. Sailari smiled faintly. We must prepare. The next days were filled with quiet training. Elias learned to calm his mind, to open himself to Sailari's thoughts without fear. Sailari learned to trust his feelings. They sat beneath the glowing trees, sharing dreams and memories. The bond grew stronger. Elias felt the pain and hope of the Valari as if it was his own. Sailari felt the kindness and courage of humans. One evening, Sailari placed her hand on Elias's forehead. Their minds touched in a bright flash of light. They saw the past, the ancient war, the lies, the betrayal, then the present, the new hope. They understood each other completely. But suddenly, the light faded. Sailari gasped. It is harder than I thought, Elias squeezed her hand. We will try again. Meanwhile, in the dark shadows of space, the Karniks fleet moved closer to Elysium 9. Their black ships waited silently behind the moon, preparing for a new attack. They watched the humans and Valari trying to unite. They knew this was dangerous, for their plans. A Karnix commander spoke in a cold voice. Stop them. Divide them. Fear is our weapon. Back on the planet, Elias and Sayalari prepared for the next fusion attempt. The forest around them seemed to glow brighter, as if the planet itself was watching. Sayalari said softly, "This touch, it can change everything." Elias nodded. For peace. And so, beneath the shining stars of Elysium 9, two souls reached out to each other, one human, one Valari, ready to face the past and fight for the future. The night sky over Elysium 9 was clear and sparkling with stars. Commander Elias Reeve sat beside Sayalari, the Valari woman, near the glowing pool deep in the forest. Both knew this night would change everything. After days of preparation, they were ready for the rite of fusion, an ancient Valari tradition that could unite two minds, two hearts, and two worlds. It was risky. No human had ever done it before. No one knew if Elias would survive the experience. But it was the only chance to prove the truth to their peoples and stop the war the Karnix were planning. Sayalari looked at Elias with calm eyes. "Are you ready?" He nodded. "For peace, I am ready." They sat opposite each other, legs crossed, hands gently touching. The forest around them seemed to quiet, as if waiting. Sayalari closed her eyes and whispered a soft chant in Valari language. Elias listened, trying to focus. The translator in his suit hummed softly, but this was beyond words. This was something deeper, energy moving between two souls. Suddenly, a bright light flowed from Sayalari's hand into Elias's palm. He felt warmth spreading through his body, and then his mind opened like a window. He saw Sayalari's memories, her childhood in the glowing forests, her family, and the pain of the ancient war. He felt her fear when first seeing humans, but also her hope for a new future. At the same time, Sayalari's mind connected to his. She saw his life, the training, the loneliness of space, his hope to bring peace to new worlds. They shared emotions without speaking. The light around them grew brighter. Birds stopped singing. The glowing plants shone like stars. Then suddenly, Elias felt a sharp pain. His mind flooded with dark images. The Karnix attacking burning cities, destroyed worlds. The pain was unbearable, but Sayalari held his hand, tightly, sharing strength. The bond was strong, but it was a battle of wills. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the pain faded. The light dimmed. Elias opened his eyes and saw Sayalari's face. She was smiling, tired, but victorious. "We did it," she said softly. Elias smiled back. "We are connected." The next morning, Elias returned to the human base camp with proof of the rite of fusion. He showed the leaders and scientists the bio-neural link data, the shared memories, the truth about the Karnix, and the deep bond between him and Sayalari. "Look at this," Elias said. "This fusion shows we are not enemies. We have shared pain and hope." Many were shocked. Some were still doubtful. But the data was clear. Meanwhile, on Elysium 9, Sayalari presented the story to the Valari elders. She shared the vision of the Karnix manipulation and her bond with Elias. The elders listened with skepticism, but her calm confidence made them pause. One elder spoke slowly. "If your story is true, then this bond is a sign, a reason to trust." Sayalari nodded. "We must unite before the Karnix attack." Days later, a joint meeting was held near the forest. Humans and Valari leaders gathered to discuss the threat. Tension filled the air. Centuries of fear and misunderstanding could not be erased overnight. Elias stood before the crowd. Sayalari was beside him, her hand resting on his arm. "We have seen the past and the danger coming," Elias said. "The Karnix want to divide us, but together we can stop them." A Valari elder stepped forward. "Humans brought fire and war before. Why should we trust you now?" Elias met the elder's eyes. "Because this time, I am not just a human. I carry your memories, your pain, your hope. We are connected," Sayalari added. "The rite of fusion shows we are stronger united. Let us face the Karnix as one." Slowly, the crowd began to nod. A spark of trust was born. But the Karniks did not wait. Sensors at the human base detected the Black Fleet moving closer. The massive ships darkened the sky behind Elysium-9's moon. "Prepare defenses," ordered the human commander. "Warn the Valari." Elias and Sayalari worked together, sharing strategies and coordinating forces. The Valari brought their technology, shields that could bend light and silent ships that moved like shadows. The humans contributed powerful weapons and fast fighters. Together they built a plan. On the day of battle, the sky was filled with bright stars and dark ships. Elias stood on the command deck, Sayalari at his side. Their hands found each other, steady and strong. As the Karniks fleet advanced, both humans and Valari fighters moved in unison. The battle was fierce and loud, with beams of light and explosions flashing across the sky. But the unity between humans and Valari gave them strength. They moved as one, covering each other, sharing information, and adapting quickly. The Karniks, expecting division, were surprised by this sudden alliance. Their attacks were repelled. During the fight, Elias and Sayalari sent out a live empathic stream, using the bio-neural link to share their emotions with all soldiers. Fear turned into courage, confusion into clarity. The shared feelings inspired every pilot and warrior to fight not for themselves, but for their new friends and allies. After hours of battle, the Karniks' fleet faltered. Their ships began to retreat, unable to break the human Valari defense. Elias and Sayalari watched as the dark ships disappeared beyond the stars. The forest around Elysium-9 seemed to breathe again. The glowing plants brightened. The war was not over, but the first battle was won. In the quiet after the fight, Elias and Sayalari stood once more by the glowing pool. They were tired but hopeful. Sayalari smiled softly. "Where once I flinched at your touch, now I stand beside you." Elias took her hand. All it took was trust. Together they looked up at the stars, ready for whatever came next. The victory over the Karniks' fleet was a turning point, but Elias Reeve and Sayalari knew the war was far from over. The Karniks were cunning and patient, and they would return with greater force if given time. Yet the bond between humans and Valari had never been stronger. After the battle, a new feeling filled the air of Elysium-9, hope. The following morning, Elias and Sayalari met again by the glowing pool. The forest shimmered softly in the early light, and the gentle hum of life filled the air. Sayalari's silver skin glowed warmly, and Elias felt the familiar warmth whenever their hands touched. "We have shown our people that unity is possible," Elias said, "but now we must build a future." Sayalari nodded. The rite of fusion was only the beginning. We must teach others to trust, to understand. Elias smiled. Yes, one touch, one moment of trust can change everything. Over the next weeks, the humans and Valari worked together to strengthen their alliance. They shared knowledge, technology, and stories. Valari taught humans about the delicate balance of their forest world, how to listen to its light and rhythms. Humans taught Valari how to repair ships and communicate faster across long distances. Elias and Sayalari led joint missions to explore nearby planets, searching for more signs of the Karniks or other species that might threaten peace. Everywhere they went, their bond was a symbol, proof that two different worlds could come together. One evening, as the twin suns set, Elias and Sayalari sat on a hill overlooking the glowing forest. The sky was painted with soft purples and pinks, and the stars began to twinkle. Sayalari spoke softly. "I once flinched when I saw you. I feared your touch." Elias took her hand gently. "But now? Now your touch brings light," she said. "Healing. Hope." She smiled. "You changed everything." Suddenly, the base alarm sounded. A warning signal flashed across the communication screens. Elias stood quickly. "What is it?" Lieutenant Kieran appeared, her face serious. "A Karnik scout ship detected, approaching fast." Elias looked at Sayalari. "They have returned." The two shared a determined look. "Prepare the defenses," Elias ordered. "But this time, we fight as one." The Karnak scout ship arrived swiftly, its black hull cutting through space like a shadow. But the combined human and Valari forces were ready. Together, they used new tactics born from their unity. Valari shields that bent light, human weapons enhanced with Valari energy. The scout ship tried to strike, but it was pushed back by the force of trust and cooperation. As the Deo battle raged, Elias and Celari again connected through the bioneural link, sharing strength and hope with their allies. The enemy retreated, signaling that the full Karnak's fleet was coming. Back on Elysium 9, the leaders of both species met to prepare for the final challenge. Elias stood before the gathered crowd, his voice steady. "We have faced fear, pain, and division, but we have overcome. The Karnaks want us broken, but we are stronger together." Celari stepped forward, her voice clear and calm. "The rite of fusion proved that trust is possible. We must teach all to open their hearts and minds. Only then can we defeat the darkness." The crowd cheered. The future was uncertain, but hope burned brightly. In the days that followed, the humans and Valari prepared for the arrival of the Karnak's fleet, training, building, and strengthening their bonds. Elias and Sayalari continued their connection, growing closer each day. Their touch was no longer just healing, it was a promise. One evening, Sayalari showed Elias a hidden grove filled with glowing flowers. She took his hand and placed it gently on the largest bloom. A soft light spread from the flower, surrounding them both. "This is our world," she said. "Together, we protect it." When the Karnak's fleet finally appeared on the horizon, it was larger and more menacing than before. But the humans and Valari stood united. The battle was fierce and long, but this time, every soldier fought not only for survival but for a new future. A future born from a single touch that changed everything. After the battle, the Karnaks were driven away. Their ships fled beyond the stars, defeated by the strength of unity. Elysium 9 became a symbol of hope in the galaxy. Humans and Valari built a lasting peace. Together they explored new worlds, shared knowledge, and faced challenges side by side. One quiet night, Elias and Celari returned to the glowing pool, where it all began. Celari smiled, her eyes shining with light. "Do you remember the first time you touched me?" she asked. Elias nodded, smiling. "I flinched," she said softly. "But your touch changed everything." Elias took her hand and looked up at the stars. "Together," he said, "we will light the darkness."